Today on the channel, there's a dragon on the loose as it's the return of the Kyle Peterson Top 5 with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
The spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever!
Welcome everyone, Kyle here, and welcome back to the channel for another edition of the Kyle Peterson Top 5, a Thursday tradition right here on the channel, where we count down the top 5 and occasionally the top 10 favorites of an action figure line, toy group, or a wrestler. You get the idea. But every single Thursday we do a top 5 countdown, and this week we've got Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, a WWE Hall of Famer, one of the most influential wrestlers of all time, really, and a very interesting wrestler as far as when I came into fandom of wrestling and where he was at and where he went and where he disappeared and where he kind of came back. So a different ebbs and flows to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat's career, like every other wrestler out there. But Ricky had a different path to his wrestling, that is for sure. And of course, we're going to count this down like we do on all the other countdown videos. We're going to start at number 5. We're going to work our way to number 1. And I asked you guys, make sure you put your list in the comments down below. And remember, this is my list. This is my list. You put your list in the comments down below and put them in order. That's the challenging part. That is the fun part. So without any further ado, let's get down to it. Let's get down to the top 5 Ricky the Dragon Steamboat figures of all time. All right, let's kick off the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat top 5 at number 5. And number 5 is a very, very recent release, a figure that really hasn't hit traditional store shelves yet. What are we talking about? We're talking about Mattel Elite Series 93, the regular edition. As we do know, there is a Chase edition. I might as well grab the Chase being yellow, the regular edition being the white. So obviously, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in later years, much later years, talking 2022, still getting action figures, so good for him. Always good to have some of these legends and Hall of Famers in the line. And this one is especially cool for me, as this is really when I had a more deeper fandom to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. This represents his WCW years. The yellow one is cool enough, just a little outside of the top 5, but I like the white one. I remember Ricky Steamboat from this time in WCW as a little kid, you know, working with Dustin Rhodes, Shane Douglas, Steve Austin, things like that. I first really knew Ricky Steamboat in 89, was it 89? I think it was 89, against Nature Boy Ric Flair, of course. That's where he really came onto my map as a big time star. If you remember, my wrestling fandom started shortly after WrestleMania 3, you know, sometime in the summer after WrestleMania 3. So the Macho Man Ricky Steamboat was in the rearview mirror. I wasn't there live watching along with that. So of course I saw those matches on VHS tape and things like that. And yeah, Ricky Steamboat's Ricky Steamboat. But he came alive in WCW against Ric Flair, NWA actually. Then of course he went to the Dragon for a little bit. But then he was back in WCW, and this was the heart and the prime of my watching time. I was trying to get every bit of wrestling into my head I possibly could. And Steamboat was running wild, running fast, running free like a young Lando Calrissian in WCW at this time. So it really does hit me in the old nostalgia feels, as we always talk about. So number 5 for me, a recent one, his most recent figure as of filming, Elite 93 regular edition from Mattel. All right, our Ricky the Dragon Steamboat list continues, and we go to number 4. And number 4, we go to Mattel once again, and we go way back to the early days of the Legends line, or you could even call it the Kmart Hall of Fame line. But we've got Ricky Steamboat in his red attire. I always liked this red attire. It always looked really good. And I specifically remember this in a lot of the PWI magazines and stuff back in the day, as I would get every single PWI wrestling magazine that was at my store, my local grocery store, of course, like most people. And then there would be sales and stuff of old magazines at old antique shops and toy shops and stuff. And I would buy the old magazines as well, as many as I could find. Ricky Steamboat always popped out in this one. The figure, very cool with, of course, the soft goods gi. Also came with the alligators, dragons, alligators, whatever you want to call them. But a very cool figure, one I always liked, and I was happy this was in the line. It was very interesting how they came out with this one very early, and not his most known attire as Ricky Steamboat for sure, but a very cool one, and that is why it comes in at number 4 for me. All right, we're at the halfway point. We're at the number 3 spot in the Ricky Dragon Steamboat countdown. Make sure you put your list in the comments down below. And for number 3 Ricky Steamboat figure, we're throwing it way back. We're throwing it way back to the start for me. We're going LJN Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Every kid I knew that collected the LJNs had this Ricky Steamboat. Fairly easy to get. I think he was around everywhere on the pegs back in the day. He was on the pegs much longer after he left the WWF back then as well. And this is an interesting one. There was a few LJNs for sure. Bruno Sammartino was one. Yeah, I knew Bruno Sammartino, but as a little kid, I didn't know his wrestling history. I didn't know any of that. He was just an easy to get figure and a guy to fill out my roster. Ricky Steamboat was a little bit of that for me when I first got him. I didn't really know who he was. I'd heard the name, hadn't seen a lot of his matches, but he was a stalwart in my LJN Fig Fed as a little kid. He was always there. Never winning any titles, I gotta admit. He never won any titles, but he was there in tag teams and feuding with guys and stuff, and he was in the mix. Of course, he was in Royal Rumbles, all that fun stuff. The way it should be. But Ricky Steamboat, LJN, one I have a lot of memories from when I was a little kid, so there was no way I could leave this guy off the list. Is it the greatest figure ever? Maybe not, but it's interesting. Karate Mania, of course, running wild with the Karate Kid in the 80s. I always kind of thought of him as a karate guy in my Fig Fed playing days and stuff. I always did love the claw hand here because, of course, the Von Erichs and their claw, so that was his finisher for me when I was playing with him. Just a lot of times with this Ricky Steamboat figure as a little kid. Very nostalgic, and that's a big part of these lists, of course. And that's why Ricky Steamboat LJN comes in at number 3. All right, we're towards the end. We're at the number 2 spot, and the number 2 Ricky the Dragon Steamboat figure of all time, as voted by me, goes to the Hasbro. Goes back to childhood nostalgia with the Hasbro Ricky the Dragon Steamboat figure here. This is when he embraced his full-on dragon. He was spitting flames like a young Gene Simmons of Kiss, doing his thing, and I got to see him live quite a few times as a kid in this persona. Very interesting Hasbro figure. I know a lot of people don't like the jumper. I'm not a big jumper guy. That was the least of the problems maybe, but a lot of people didn't like the Batman style forearm guards here, the headdress going on, all that kind of stuff. Basically his ring gear. As they said, you know, it was tough to wrestle and play with. And when I was a kid, I don't know what it was. I could look past all that stuff in my action figures, and it was no big deal for me. And I like this one. As far as jumpers go, I always felt this was one of the better jumpers out there. It was always interesting, too. He had his back cape on right here, and some people put it up, some people put it down. I guess it's supposed to technically go down, but I used it up a lot, but that's neither here nor there. But a very good figure, a definite moment in time for Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, coming off his NWA run back to the WWF at the time. Mixed messages here. I don't think he did a whole lot. This was kind of a fly-by-night attire, but I would say as far as Ricky Steamboat goes, most people, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's just an age bracket thing, most people really remember him in this kind of get-up in this gear, and it was such a limited time, but it was in front of the most eyes he'd ever been in front of when he was in this costume, in this attire, so I think that has a lot to do with it here. But very, very cool, and like I said, a jumper. I'm not a huge jumper guy, but as far as Hasbro's go, this was a pretty good one in the jumper line up. So there you go. But number 2, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, WWF Hasbro. All right, we've come to the very end of our Ricky the Dragon Steamboat countdown, and we are at the number 1 spot as voted by me. Of course, make sure you put your list in the comments down below. Put them in order. That's the challenging part. And if you like what you see, make sure you subscribe. Hit the old notification bell, as every single Thursday we are doing a different countdown video. Early, if you're a member of the Patreon, of course, Patreon members get first dibs on That's So Hard to Say Goodbye items. We also get exclusive giveaways over there, bonus content, and all the content on the channel much, much earlier. Weeks, sometimes months earlier in some cases. So check out the Patreon down below. So we're at the number 1 spot for Ricky Steamboat. Number 1 spot goes for Mattel once again. And I'm sure you guys know which one this one is going to be. We're talking about the defining moments, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Of course, we got a loose one, and of course, I got one on card. There he is, Ricky Steamboat. Once again, a lot like the Hasbro, very nostalgic. I really do like this one, and it feels very deluxe with all the extra goods here, the hard and soft goods mix. Ricky Steamboat looking really, really good. The Defining Moments packaging, we all know, is a very awesome package, a very deluxe package. Ahead of its time, really, is what this packaging was. It is, unfortunately, a line that died out, but I would not be shocked if we don't see these come back one day. We've seen it with the Legends line. We might see it with the Defining Moments one of these days down the line. Fingers crossed. It would be really cool if they could pop one of these out maybe 3 or 4 times a year, something like that. You never know what might happen in the future. But this is really good. Like I said, soft, hard goods, Ricky Steamboat. Get the torch with him. The packaging is always cool on these defining moments where you get to see the back as well. You get the blurb on the back there. Representing March 30th, 1991. Young Kyle was 10 years old when this happened. But an interesting time for Ricky Steamboat, as we talked about with the Hasbro. Just a very, very solid figure. I like this one a lot, and I have to think this is going to be in almost everybody's top 5 Ricky Steamboat list. I don't know how it couldn't be. It is his most deluxe figure he ever received in toy form. But what say you guys out there? Make sure you put your list in the comments down below, and make sure you put them in order. I'd love to see where you rank out your Ricky Steamboats. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to say, Kyle, you didn't have the white gi Ricky Steamboat, either the original one or the fan takeover. Just not for me. It just didn't make my list. Probably a strong number 6 for me, but I have to assume that'll be in a lot of people's list. But let me know your list. Put it in the comments down below. And of course, follow along on SirPaul64 at Twitter, Instagram, _Kyle_Peterson, ProWrestlingTees.com. You can get this shirt if you want to. Support the channel, pick up a t-shirt there. So there it is, the top 5 Ricky the Dragon Steamboat figures as voted by me. And until next time, you guys know I'm Kyle, and I'll see you guys all real soon.